Life growing up for me in Peckham, I mean, it was interesting. It was it was interesting because I was a bit of a neek. I kind of still am, you know, very sort of different, sort of sporty kind of like kid. I was a kid that was always in drama class and sort of art and design and stuff like that. Not knowing back then I was dyslexic, so it kind of made sense as to why I've kind of taken the route I have, sort of in terms of film and art and all the rest of it, visual art. And yeah, like, I mean, I remember I used to be kind of like, you know, that loner, that little kid, because I was really small in school. But I was very determined. That was one thing for me. Growing up, I knew that I was going to be something beyond what like the sort of archetype of the area I grew up in was. Do you get what I mean? And so, yeah, I mean, I kind of pursued that, and I guess a lot of it was guidance by God and God's guidance for me. You know, I feel like my upbringing was tough to a degree. There was certain, you know, family things like we all have, you know, it's universal, which is where I get a lot of my inspiration from when it comes to making work. And I guess, yeah, I mean, I had a good childhood. Yeah, my mum tried her hardest, you know, to do everything for me and my sister. You know, my pops as well. When he was around, he tried his best as well. But I guess a large part of our upbringing was centered around church. Do you know what I mean? It was centered around going to church and going and being part of. And I mean, church was about community, really. It wasn't really just about religion and religious beliefs. It is where the Nigerian community met on a weekly basis, you know, without fail. Like, you know, you're seeing, it's not like now, you know, how, you know, the concept of community is kind of completely different. So my childhood was, you know, my upbringing was about community and about how do you retain and sort of keep alive your culture and keep alive the things that we hold dear, you know, like it's a big deal. You know, you go to church on a Sunday or, you know, even to the practice they're doing for the instruments and all that. And then you see one uncle or one auntie and you don't prostrate. Trust me, your mum will hear about it and all of a sudden it's a situation. Do you get what I mean? So, you know, I was growing up in that kind of setup. You get me? So it was, yeah, it was interesting. It was very, very, very Nigerian. My mum spoke Yoruba to me growing up, my dad as well. So, you know, Yoruba's, it's like I understand it. You know, I speak it small, you know. I do speak it, but like I speak it in a way in which it's a bants thing. Do you get what I mean? When it's about bants, I drop it like uncontrollably, but you know, in a large part, you know, a lot of my friends that growing up are Nigerian. Like, it was just, that was it. That's all I knew. I went to school, but then you come back, and then that was it. And then, I guess coming out of that whole setup, you know, I was one of the lead actors at school. I used to do all the theatre plays like Treasure Island and all of that, and I was seriously considering being on stage. But then I left school with some dead GCSEs, and it was just, yeah, it was made apparent to me by the person across the table that I would not become something. They were saying that. So for me, I kind of, you know, I lost confidence because of that it was going to be a reality to potentially be on screen. So I just tried to find a way to stay involved. Because when I went to college, they put me on a leisure and tourism course. I had no choice about it because the grades I had just were not, I didn't get 5 A to C's. So it was like, it's either this or nothing, son. So anyway, long story short, God had a plan, and I got kicked out of my first college, and it was brilliant because it's what changed my life. And then I went to Kingston, put my head down, and did the course I needed to do, which was filmmaking. Yeah, and so got onto the course without the grades, and it was, at the time, you know, my grades were so whack that back then it was the BTEC and GMVQs. I'm not sure, not a lot of people, I don't know if they do those anymore, but you know, I would have been in college for like 4 years like some dunce, but fortunately I only did 2 years, and it was this course that just kind of transformed me because I got my head out of the area. I went to Kingston. There weren't many people up in Kingston back then, so yeah, and then just put my head down, and then from there just went to uni, you know, started working, started doing all this other stuff. I mean, I veered off for a few years, for about 5-6 years, because I became a football coach. And got my level 1, level 2, started working for Chelsea as a scout, ran a football team for 5 years. So it was very sort of like, well, actually I'm studying to do this, but then on the other hand, here I am doing all of that. But that was by design as well. You know, God had a plan that, look, this is the training that you need to do this. You know, a lot of the stuff I did as a football manager, as a football coach, actually serves me well as a director and a filmmaker now, because you're managing a team and people are playing positions. You know, you have your striker. Your striker is, for me, is like my producer. Do you get what I mean? You know, centre mid, you know, your first AD. You get me? Like your defense, like maybe your script editor or someone who's like your editor. So it's like understanding how to manage relationships and people came from that, and it's a massive grounding, and it changed me also in terms of the fact that I was working with young people. I was working with people from my area who really needed that at the time. It was less about football. It was more about being part of something, and so it really grounded me. And so my upbringing, you know, in my area was, again, like I say, it's centered around community massively, and doing stuff within the community and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, acting for me, I'm not even doing this, to be honest with you, this kind of stuff. I do it because it's part and parcel in it, but like, you know, to help out the ecosystem of what the industry is, and obviously, yeah, profile. But I don't have a desire to be on the screen, only when there's a real purpose and it's necessary, you know. And in documentary, often, you know, the voice of the director, the voice of the auteur, quote unquote, is an important voice to have. Occasionally, you know, you can have it there in a non-physical way, in a non-sort of literal way, on screen or off screen. But it's not really something I really am interested in. Maybe in a stylistic way, in a more sort of meaningful, purposeful, artistic way, and it has purpose and it means something, and there's a reason. Then maybe, but like otherwise, being in front of the camera as an actor is just not a thing for me. So how I got into filmmaking was, I guess, I started making short films, but large in part, it was through the sort of educational system that I was using that as a playground to, you know, to kind of, yeah, set the groundwork to become a filmmaker. And then, I guess, just to cut a long story short, you know, I went to college, went to uni, made shorts there, but but the shorts I was making whilst I was there, they weren't focused on, oh, here's a task, do the task. It was all about self-exploration for me. It was always about something that meant something to me. It had purpose, it had meaning. There was some form of revelation for me, you know, about myself. So a lot of those films, sometimes I feel nervous showing that early work, but like, I'm not actually so bothered because I know there's me, I'm in there. Do you get what I mean? My core is in there. So those films, I guess, were the beginning of me becoming a filmmaker. But then I went to film school. Getting into film school was a mad one because it wasn't even a thing I even dreamt of, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know anything about film school growing up. I didn't grow up watching films. You know, we grew up watching television, mate. As much as people might want to pretend, we watched EastEnders, blood. Everyone watched EastEnders. Everyone. So like people who want to be pretending, oh yeah, I'm a filmmaker, author, nah. Like, I grew up watching like bog standard telly. Do you get what I mean? Like everyone else. So, you know, I'm not coming from a family that, you know, yes, we had a lot in Nigeria because I moved here from Nigeria as a baby. So, you know, my dad was a pilot, studied aviation in America. And my mum and my sister was also born in Nigeria. We all came over here to join him. And yeah, film wasn't a thing in our household. It's like, yeah, I watched Romance in the Stone. I loved Dumb and Dumber. I watched all those films like Home Alone, Goonies, you name it, all of that. But that's not what made me want to become a filmmaker. What made me want to become a filmmaker was, I guess in large in part, you know, the position that I saw that we had growing up where I grew up. You know, like the way we were represented. The way we were represented growing up just showed me that, look, there's an imbalance here. What can I do? Which is why a lot of the work I do has purpose, has meaning, there's something behind it. It's not about, the ambition, because I didn't start out wanting to be a director. You know, even the position of a director, I didn't understand what it meant until, again, I stumbled upon film school properly, you know, because even at uni, like, I was making my films, but like, yeah, I was the director, but was I the director? I was like shooting it, I was doing all of these different things. Do you know what I mean? And it was always around documentary, always around self-reflection and the things that I was feeling about the area I was living in. And yeah, and went to film school because one summer, whilst I was at uni, I was running around on people's film sets as a production assistant and a runner. You know, I remember I had my little Renault Banger Clio back then. I used to run around like, you know, jumping on, you know, film set from film set to film set. But the first film set that did it was a big feature film. It was crazy because we were at uni and we were invited to come as extras. And it was an Elijah Wood film called Oxford Murders. And we were essentially just filler in the room. It was a lecture scene. He was sat in front of us, blah, blah, blah. We were in the hero stand. But there was a guy there, and this guy, Dan Castella, I'll never forget it. Literally, he went to my uni as well, but he had already graduated. So he was that guy who had gone to the uni, done well, and was working on film set. He was the director's assistant on that shoot. And so I was, like I said earlier, you know, I'm very determined. I was determined that I was not going to be sat in just the seats, just as filler, because I'm not here to be an extra. Like, okay, I've come to be an extra, but I've come to peep what they're doing, mainly to see what they're saying. So by the time that the shoot had finished, it was a 2-day shoot, but not for everyone. They invited some people back. So I was one of those they invited back for the second day. But what I had done was I had made sure I'd made friends with everyone on set. And so before the end of the day, I was, instead of being sat in front of the camera, I was sat behind the director's chair with Dan and the director. So I was seeing what the DOP was doing, I was seeing what everyone else was doing on set, the gaffer, the loader, this, that, and the other. And from that, from spending time with Dan, he was like, yo man, like, what are you up to this summer? Said, yo, I'm here. Shoot after shoot after shoot after shoot after shoot. And then I landed in the film school there was a commercial they were shooting, and I remember just being there, and I met this loader, clapper loader, Chin. She would not even think that she's a Nigerian woman. This is the first ever woman I've seen as a loader, even a camera team, black woman. I was like, yo, like, this is sick. Like, I felt great. Like, and then she said to me, hey, have you ever thought of applying here? And the shoot we were doing was at the National Film and TV School. Did I even know what the National Film and TV School was? But again, by design, because some of this stuff's just written, do you get what I mean? I didn't really believe in myself enough at the time to apply, but I did. But the film that I used was, it was a film that meant a lot to me at the time, because it was about one of the young people I was working with. And it was a positive piece. It was like really artistic, elegiac, all of this stuff, like my style, poetic, impressionistic. Sent it to them. And then I got on and I was like, oh damn, like, really? Because basically they pull you in for an interview. To get even to the interview was a big deal. To then get to the workshop week was a big deal, because they're cutting it down to 8 people a year, okay, for directors. And here's me, this guy who's like, do you know what I mean? Like, me, why me? You know what I mean? Like, how? But I wasn't ready then. And so I was about 22 at the time. And I remember I was still working as a football coach, and I was telling them, oh, I've got to go back and work, because I've got to help my mum pay what's going on at home and all that. And I'd gotten to this position, I'd made this little short film, and yeah, I didn't get on that year. I didn't get in, but I was determined to get in. And 2 years later, I applied and got in. And then from there, it was just, that was it. So Untitled is, Untitled is about the first generation immigrant experience. And it's a fantasy documentary. It's mainly about what it feels like, or what the fantasy is of what you believe when you leave your country you are coming to. The immigrant experience. Like, the film is about that. It's about reimagining that and looking at what it actually means to be an immigrant, to be a mother, an African mother as well, at that. But motherhood in general, it's looking at how we view ourselves, how, the pride that we take within ourselves, and also, I guess, mainly also my culture as well. It's a celebration of that. It's a celebration of many immigrants coming to this, country, and many a country, like internationally, globally. We, as much as, I'm Nigerian, I know who I am and all the rest of it, that means a lot to me. I'm from that place, and we came here, and sometimes you can be made to feel, not sometimes, pretty much all the time, you can be made to feel like you're not of any value, or like, what are you doing here? We hear that all the time. Go back to your country. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we don't mind. I'm going to Nigeria in a couple of days. Like, I go back to my country. Like, do you understand? But I also exist here. Same way when the British came to our country, they existed there and existed here. So, there is a right, we have a right to be here because of the history that we have. And essentially the film is dealing with that colonial relationship, and actually trying to say, actually, this is what I feel about it. This is how I see it. This is my interpretation of it. And so I'm excited by what it meant to me, because this is not a new idea. This is, you know, this is a project that I've been wanting to do for a few years. As small as it may be in terms of like length and whatnot, but in terms of substance and importance, it came about, you know, a couple of years ago. And so I've kind of like, I've been holding this inside for a minute, and there's a lot that I hold inside, because the thing is like, you know, we can talk to the house, you know, to the cows come home, is that, I think this is a saying they use, but, you know, the proof is in the work, you know. And so I like to leave what I feel and my, what I think, or some of what I think. I don't try and steer everyone in one direction and say, oh, this is what it is. I try and leave it in the work, you know. And so the film, yeah, it's about many things. You know, it's about a universal experience. It's about power, pride, freedom. Like, it's just about what it means, like, to be a woman. You know, women birthed this freaking world. And how many times have you seen a woman like in that position, the conqueror, quote unquote, position, you know? And for me, it's like readdressing certain narratives and saying, wait a minute, who wrote this thing? Okay, let's check this out for a second. Let's readdress this, because it's necessary. So shooting Untitled was, it's a dream. I just remember we shot across mainly one day, as a day and a half. So there's stuff, everything to do with the horse was obviously in one day, just because of logistics and everything else. But it was like a dream, you know, it was like a dream. Like I remember shooting it and thinking to myself, and you know when you're shooting something as well, that there's a feeling you get, and I think most in part, and this is why I take my time with my work as well. I'm not the type of person who's putting work out all the time, because I really value, especially when it's like, it comes from me, like I really value taking time with the work and just being dead certain. And I remember feeling so certain. And I remember speaking to my producer Fiona before we even shot this thing, and how certain I was when I told her, and how certain she was when she responded to me about, oh, yeah, like, I didn't have a producer on board at the time, and I was just gonna go rogue. I was just gonna go out there to Pecs and just grab a horse, like in a paddock. There's a horse stable literally about 30 seconds from my mum's house. Yeah, there's a horse stable there. So I was thinking, you know, let me just go there, chat to these people, get the horse, shoot it, get my brethren's camera, do the thing. Fiona was like, what are you talking about? What are you on about? How are you gonna do that? You need this, you need that, you know, don't worry, I got you covered. And there was just a certainty all the way through, you know, because this image had been something that had been in my mind for a few years. There's a friend of mine, very, very good friend of mine, Kima, and she and I had been speaking about this idea years previous, and it was like, we were gonna try and see if we could make it happen. And this is the initial iterations of us. But the image of my mum on the horse was something I'd been talking about for time. And so when we were there shooting it, it was just like a dream, because I'd been fantasizing about this idea of doing this and what it actually means to have her there in this position, coming up this high street, because there was a stage where we almost didn't shoot on a high street. And I'd spoken to Fiona and I said, look, Fee, let me tell you something. If we don't shoot on this high street, the film is not, there's no film. It just doesn't make any sense. And so, because I knew the axes the crossing of the axes of the film all align at that moment. You see her on the high street, this big auntie, my mum, on a horse, on this road, in this country, dressed in her, full regalia. It was like, yeah, we've arrived. Do you get what I mean? So when we were shooting it that day, I was just like, are we really doing this? People were just watching us. Like, we were shooting on the estate, shooting on the block. People were just looking out their windows, and people were looking at us thinking, is this really happening? Like, what the hell is actually going on? So it did feel like a bit of a dream, and so it was meant to feel that way anyway. It was meant to feel like a fantasy. Like I say, it's a fantasy documentary, but like, it was incredible. And I mean, getting a horse on the high street, me and my mum had gone and met Bo, the horse, out in the sticks, like proper, like, because the horse is not, it's not a London-based horse. I mean, it's also not just like any horse. It's like a proper, it's a film horse. Do you know what I mean? He's been in Hercules, been in Pirates of the Caribbean, Game of Thrones, Peaky Blinders, you name it. That horse is a serious horse. Like, and it's also, it's an older horse as well. And with the older horses, they're much more calmer. It's really gentle. And so getting the horse on the high street wasn't that big a deal in that respect. But in my mind, the night before and weeks before, I was like, just crapping myself. I was worried and concerned, obviously, because I'm about to do this thing, and I'm thinking, imagine I was having nightmares the night before, thinking, this idiot, what if he puts his mum on a horse and, horse bucks and she drops and she's got no helmet on and splat. I couldn't even look in the monitor on that day properly. All I was doing was like this. I had my mum in vision. I had a dream that I would be catching her. I'm not even lying to you. I had a dream that I would catch her if she fell, that I'd be there no matter what. Like, I would have caught her and just grabbed her if anything happened. Like, because that's how shook I was, because she hadn't ridden one before as well. And so, although we had all this health and safety stuff covered, and it was still a bit of a mad one, People ride horses in London all the time. Do you get what I mean? It's not a new thing, but I think it's the context of, as you understand, I'm sure, like, it's the context of how we shot it and why we shot it and the purpose and reasoning behind it. And so doing that last year it made me feel good, because, I work on a lot of stuff, but there's not many things that make me feel like that, And so those are the moments I live for, like doing what we do. Like, I'm not in it to be a director. I'm in it to like really leave some serious legacies out here, leave something that beyond me, beyond my mother, beyond all of this, beyond, Adeyemi Michael, the filmmaker, that will, the youths will be looking at this in years to come and be like, like, they'll be talking about it like it was a myth, like a folklore thing. Oh, did you hear about that auntie that on the horse that, And so when we look at the images of these people that we're used to seeing, and we don't see ourselves represented within that, I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to look at that and say, okay, well, as a documentarian, as a filmmaker, as an artist, how do we have that? How do we retain that? How do we keep that in there? How will we be remembered? How will we be remembered? How will we remember ourselves? How will we pass on what we have and what we, like the way in which my mum passed on my language to me. Do you get what I mean? It's really important how we also, we're seen and documented in this way. As black people, as Africans, as, you name it, quote unquote, people who are from different spaces, from different planets, universes, essentially, how will we be remembered, And this is a problem that we have sometimes, is that, in our communities, a lot of our people are like, no, don't put the camera on me. Don't put the camera on me. No, bro, why you... No, we need that. We need to we need to be remembered and understood in all of our nuance and brilliance and flaws and everything. So that's really kind of, you know, my objective, you know, is to look at all of that, you know, because a lot of the other films I make as well, they're very different, like, but we need to be understood in that way, you know, and not to just be, oh, you know, here's this person who's all the way up here and this is the life. What about all the stuff in the middle? Do you get what I mean? You know, can't we be whole already? You know, and it's on us to do that. It's not on anyone else. So, you know, a large part of the work I'm interested in doing and I'm doing is about that. It's not just about, you know, lowly stories or, you know, a story on the ends or, do you get what I mean? It's the banality. It's all about the minutiae as well, like all of that. It's very, very necessary. As much as, you know, it might be great to see my mum on a horse and everything, I think it's also important to capture everything that we are, because, you know, I saw something today, and it was, I think it was Arthur Jaffa. He was doing a talk somewhere, and he was talking about his work is kind of focusing on, you know, making the black body, you know, understood as a human body. How making the film has I guess there's I've been out here, do you get what I mean? Like, how making that film has, like, changed things for me in the sort of tapestry of being a filmmaker and the world of that, the world of film and cinema and stuff is interesting. You know, I've been here. You know, I came out with my first proper, like, film to the world and said, hey, this is who I am and this is how I feel about things. This is how I talk about, you know, issues in the work. This is what I want to do, you know, with my first film, Sadiq, which again is, you know, it's really a film that is not a film to be like, oh, here is me, I'm a big director. I'm saying, look, we got a problem here. We need to fix this thing. This is a social issue. This is a justice issue. Can we solve this situation? So it really, I put my stake in the ground, you know. So it's not me, you seeing my work now, I've not just arrived. I've been out here. like I've been out here. So, you know, I guess what's happened is that people have just seen me now. People are like, oh, rah, this guy exists. Who's this dude? Like, where did he come from? Because people just see your work just like that, bam. They're like, rah, man just dropped. Nah, mate. I've been at the coalface, just hustling, grinding, shooting, working in TV, you know, just trying to get by, trying to earn money to be able to survive, to then do the next thing. And also just trying to, I think since my last film, when I first made that film, I came out into an industry that I hadn't been in before, okay? I came, like I said to you earlier, I used to be a youth worker. I was working with young people, you know, at the Damilola Taylor Center. I was coaching football. I was, like, mentoring. So I hadn't really worked in a professional environment properly, quote unquote, before I came out with that film. And so I came to the industry, I was like, oh, this is a bit weird, isn't it? You know, I just thought I could just come in, do the thing that I'd done with that film, because that was, essentially, it was a film school film. But it didn't play in that way. It played just normally as, like, festival films. It gathered a lot of steam, should I say, like, and did very well. And you know, I came out and was expecting something very different about how I would be able to then go and speak my mind, technically. Do you get what I mean? And so it didn't work out that way, straight. It didn't work out that way at all. I was like, what is this? Huh, interesting. You know, and so, yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful for all of that, because it's made me solid. Because it's made me really know who I am and what I'm about and what I really stand for. Because in that time I could have easily gone and been, oh, you know, screw this, let me just become this person. Let me just fit into this system, because I didn't fit in. And you know, I kind of still don't fit in so much, you get what I mean? Like into the narratives that they want us to tell in certain spaces, then that's okay. And so I've realized that actually there are spaces that are excited about, you know, the type of work that we are making, you know. But that's because I feel like large in part because of the autonomy that's been granted to us through social media and through people being able to make their work and just put their work out there. And I guess I would say it's illuminated me and illuminated the work that I'm interested in doing. And, you know, I hope long may it continue, really, because, you know, I just feel like there's just stories that we need to tell in our way, and I don't really want to be restricted to any sort of types of formats. And, you know, yes, I know how to work in those, but like I'm bigger than that, you know. When I'm talking about as a whole human being, I'm not just that. I actually am this as well. It's like, you know, I made a film for Panorama last year, but again, it's when you look at the core fiber of that film, it stands for something, you know. And all of my work that I'm interested and that I'm working on at the moment is always has that. It's like, actually, it's bigger than just, oh, you're watching a film. Do you get what I mean? It's gonna permeate beyond that moment, and you'll watch that film and it'll make you go and do something, or it'll make you go and think about something or have a conversation that will spark something else. And so, you know, I feel like it's given me the opportunity, this recent piece of work, to have the eyes and the ears of more people, because I've never really had that before, like as much. I don't think. I think this is the first time that I've actually pushed work out and loads of people have seen it, because I've worked on a lot of things that people will know of, but I just don't shout about it as well. So there's a bit of that. But there's certain things I'm interested in shouting about. So as you know, I'm sure you're aware and you get and stuff. So so yeah, that's it really. I'm proud. Like I'm very happy for what it's kind of afforded me a little bit as well, because I think for the first time I've been allowed to just run, like just go and run with it and just get on with it, you know. And so I feel it started a new conversation, because that's the thing about this industry as well. It's like people say, oh, so what you on next? You're doing this, you're doing that. Whereas I'm not just like scattershot. I'm very like, can I feel something first? Let me feel something, and then let me then address that, because then that's what will reach the people, and that's what will last, you know. It stands beyond the test of time, that stuff. Because again, like I said, I'm not here to just be a director or be a filmmaker. Yeah, I'm a filmmaker, but like, you know, I'm more than that. Like, I'm a brother, I'm a son, like I'm a friend, I'm a nephew, I'm a brethren, like, you know, I'm a teacher, I'm a mentor. I need my work to be able to reach outside of just that. Do you get what I mean? So I feel, yeah, you know, okay, you know, I got signed to an agent and everything, you know, my agent's amazing and like all of that. I'm very grateful, you know. At the same time, you know, you have to stand for something, because there's so much in this world right now that's like, it's middle of the road and yokey, and you know, people are just doing things for doing things' sake. But what is it really about, and what do you really mean? Who are you? Do you get what I mean? Like, who are you? So for me, a lot of this stuff is, you know, I'm not even trying to get into all of the hype of it. I'm not, trust me. Yeah, I'm pushing my work out there because people need to see it, and people need to understand that actually this is where we need to be at. This is where we need to go. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm excited.